Well, good morning again to you. Here we I'm doing two videos, one after the other because I forgot yesterday's. So no, I don't wear the same clothes 2 days in a row. In the last video I said it was for the 28th, but yesterday's video was for the 29th. Today is Thursday, August the 30th. So yeah, it's dates get a little confusing for me. So continuing to read through Ezekiel. Yesterday was all about what's going behind the scenes, and understanding that there's when we're willing to see things, walk in the Spirit and see things spiritually, we discern a lot more than what we see with our eyes. And today it was really dealing with the false prophets and how they caused the death of people who were supposed to live, and allowed people to live who were supposed to die. And the reason for this is because they were giving this narrative that Israel was going to be, or Judah was going to be fine, that Jerusalem was going to be fine, that the Babylonians were not going to be successful, and they were basing that on past history. These prophets weren't looking; they weren't tapped into the Lord at all. They had no spiritual discernment whatsoever. They were looking at history, what the Lord had done in the past, and in the past He had rescued them from great foes. It wasn't too often that Jerusalem was defeated. A couple of times they were, but in most cases the Lord intervened and rescued them. So that's what they were basing their prophecies on, and it was false. It was a false narrative, and because of it, they didn't surrender when they should have surrendered. The king did not surrender. He listened to these false prophets and held out hope, and he didn't surrender when he should have surrendered. If you remember, Jeremiah was called in by the king, and the king was asking him privately, with no officials around, what he was supposed to do. And Jeremiah said, listen, if you surrender, if you give yourself over to Nebuchadnezzar, if you surrender to the king of Babylon, all will go well. It will go well for you and your family. It will go well for the citizens of Jerusalem. But the king didn't do it. Maybe he was afraid of his officials. Maybe he gave in to the false prophets, but he didn't. And he ended up being blinded. His children ended up being slaughtered before he was blinded. And then he was taken into captivity and thrown into prison. And the people of Jerusalem were slaughtered. Absolutely slaughtered, because they didn't surrender, and I guess made Nebuchadnezzar very angry, and he killed a lot. When you look at how very few people were actually taken into exile, you realize the enormity of the number of people that were killed, and it wasn't good. It wasn't good. All the officials were killed, priests were killed, everybody was killed. It was terrible, and all because they held out. We have to discern spiritually. We see things. It's kind of like yesterday's reading. We see things in the flesh and we make assumptions, because we base it on past history. We base it on the historical knowledge that we have of God. But things change all the time, and we have to be fresh with Him. We have to be connected to Him. We've got to have today's goal plan. We've got to know how He wants to operate today, and there's certain things that we can do that are His heart. We know that we know that He wants all disease cured. We know that He wants sins forgiven. We know that He wants everybody adopted. There are certain givens that's His whole plan. But some of the details will change from day to day, and we have to be discerning. We have to hear His voice. We have to be able to speak into people's lives freshly. According to today, not according to yesterday or 10 years ago or anything of the sort. we got to be careful that we're not speaking falsely into people's lives based upon our historical knowledge. And we need to be up to date with God's plan and what's going on. So that's a good lesson for today. That's good. And we have to constantly be seeking to hear his voice, constantly. Because he wants to speak into people's lives, and he wants to use the people who have ears to hear, and who are willing to speak those words. So let's make that goal. Let's be attentive to him. Let's ask him, Lord, do you have a word for this person? And be attentive and listen. Sometimes it comes in words, sometimes in images, sometimes in scripture, sometimes in words of knowledge. There's all kinds of ways that come in, but let's be sensitive to the Spirit because we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be walking in the Spirit, not just for our own self, but for the sake of the people around us. So you be blessed today, be encouraged, be used by him, and we'll talk to you later. God bless.